Hello, and welcome to Chapter 6 in Business 110. Chapter 6 is all about management. So, if you take any business course, you will hear the four functions of management: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Just go ahead and get it tattooed somewhere, okay? Planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Those are the four functions of management. It's in every textbook from high school to PhD level. So those are the four broad functions of management. We're going to kind of dive into each of them on kind of not a big deep dive, but a little bit of a deep dive. So let's talk about planning first. There's four types of planning, and we'll go over each of them: strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency. So strategic planning is usually done by top management. And this is basically, where do you want to see the company in 1 to 5 years? They establish the mission and the long-term goals. It's typically broad and general. It's kind of this overarching, for example, maybe your company wants to diversify. Maybe you want to be in 2 more businesses in 5 years. That's a strategic goal. It doesn't tell you how to get there. It's not measurable. It's more of a motivating kind of value system. Our strategic plan is. Tactical planning is kind of the who, what, where, and when. How are we going to get to where we want to be in 5 years? And tactical planning is typically less than a year. And again, it's the who, what, where, why, when. So if you were in the military and someone said, we need to stop a group of trucks that have supplies in them, the generals are going to say, stop that convoy. They're not going to tell you how, they're just going to give you that goal. Then the tactical people come in and they say, well, you know what? That whole convoy has to go over this bridge over the river. And this is the only bridge over the river in 50 miles. If we blow up this bridge, we can stop that convoy. And then the operational people are the ones that are going to say, okay, what do we need to have to blow up the bridge? Are we going to put C4? Are we going to use dynamite? It's not the generals that come down and say you need 6 sticks of dynamite. That is on the operational level. So kind of big picture, who, what, why, when, and then, okay, let's do it. So I hope that makes sense, the kind of the 3 levels of planning: the strategic, the tactical, and the operational. So that is current. That is, this is happening now. What do we need to do? Now, the other type of planning is called contingency planning. This is a really hard thing to do. This is where you sit and think about all of the what ifs. Okay, what if a tornado hit Iredell County? What if there was a fire at Mitchell? What if there was a gunman on the Mooresville campus? You try to think about all of the planning and the what ifs, and then you practice them so it becomes almost muscle memory, if you will. But contingency planning is very hard to do because, first of all, you cannot ever think about all of the what ifs. You're always going to forget something. And then, even if you remember, or even if you thought about it, you're still left with, it didn't go the way we thought. So contingency is really a hard thing to kind of think about doing, but there are every company out there that has some kind of contingency plan. So that is the planning function of management. Now we're going to go into the organizing function of management. And this is where you think, okay, let's divide similar tasks, okay? And then let's divide groupings of jobs and employees, and then let's assign authority. So you kind of think about, okay, what has to be done, who can do it, and who can oversee it. And that's it in kind of a nutshell. It's a lot harder than you may think. You're thinking, how hard can it be to organize? But there are all different ways to organize companies. Some of them are in a pyramid with the CEO on top. Some of them are a matrix. Some of them have a very flat structure. There's no bosses. Some of them have they're organized geographically. So you may have a North America, a European, and a Midwest or Mid-East division. And each one of those divisions, for example, would have a lawyer and an accountant and a payroll. So see, there's overlapping there. So, I mean, it really does get to be, how is the best way to organize the labor and the employees and the tasks. The next thing we're going to talk about is leading. Leading, to me, is one of the underrated, I guess I would say, tasks in management. Now, you don't have to be a born leader to be a manager. A lot of people think that. There is a difference between managing and leading. And as we talked about in entrepreneurship, a lot of great entrepreneurs are great leaders, but they don't want to get bogged down in the daily managing of things. So it does take a special person to be a manager. But leading is one of the functions of management. And I like the definition that your textbook uses and that I have seen other places. Leading is guiding and motivating others. So you can motivate all you want, but if they're not going to follow you, what good is all that motivation? So it's got to be a hand-in-hand thing. You can't just get people motivated, and you can't just guide them. You got to have both of those to get employees really actively leading. So your book talks about, in order to guide and motivate, you have to have some specific type of power. And so legitimate power is just the power that comes to you because of your position. If you're the CEO, you have some type of power just because of where you're at. Reward power and coercive power are basically the reverse. Reward power is that you have control over the rewards. The coercive is that you have control over the negative outcomes. So either you can give them a reward or you can make their life miserable. Expert power is because you know something. There's knowledge in what you know. So people come to you and see you as a leader because you're an expert in your area of knowledge. And then referent power is you're a charismatic person, or you have a respect, or you have the admiration. It's one of those, the referent power is, it's kind of hard to put your finger on because you know it when you see it, but I think charismatic comes closest to referent power. Reward power and coercive power, if you've ever read anything in psychology, those get old quick. And even if you have that kind of power, after a while, people just tend to ignore it, even if you're going to be a jerk and you have control over the rewards or the negative consequences, it's not what I would consider a legitimate business power. So your book also talks about 3 styles of managers under the leading part: autocratic, participative, and free reign. Autocratic, the military, classic example. You're not going to have a discussion with a general who says bomb that convoy. You're not going to say, okay, I know I'm just private, but hear me out here. How about if we let them cross because, we really don't want to be mean to them? No, the autocratic is do as I say and do it now. And then the participative kind of manager will allow the leader, will allow the followers to kind of talk about it. Kind of, hey, what do you think? And we'll listen to what the followers have to say. Now, that doesn't mean that the participative manager is always going to do what his followers want, because in the end, somebody has to make the decision, but he gets feedback from his followers, or she gets feedback from her followers. And then the last one is a free rein style of manager. I have worked for a free rein manager, and y'all might think that it sounds ideal, because that's when the manager doesn't make any decisions. Everybody makes decisions. The kind of organization I worked in, there was 21 employees, and no decision was made unless everyone agreed. Do you know how hard it is to get 21 people to agree to anything? The people under the manager are the ones who made all of the decisions. Now, it's not as bad as you may think. I mean, I'm sure that it works in some organizations. You usually see this in like high-tech firms and some labs. Basically, really highly educated people who don't really need that kind of autocratic style, let's say. And basically, the management comes in and says, here's our goal, bye. And then the people under there have to work towards figuring out a way to reach that goal. So that's free rein. And that is a legitimate leading style. So we've done organizing, leading, and now it's on to control. Oh, I'm missing one. Oh, planning. I'm sorry. Planning, organizing, leading. And now we're on to controlling. And controlling is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean controlling in that, I got to control everything in my life. It's basically a cycle. You set your performance standards or goals. You measure it. You compare your measurement to what the goals are. You take corrective action. And you use the information to guide future standards and goals. So let me give you a quick example. Your performance standard is, I will get a 90 or above on all of my quizzes. You take the quiz, right? Then you compare your performance to your standards and goals. So so far I've gotten 2 85s and 190. Okay. So now you're going to take corrective action. What would your corrective action be? Study harder. Make sure I know where the material is in the book. And then you would use that information to guide your future goals. So maybe 10 questions in 10 minutes, you might say, really, I have test anxiety. I really need to kind of lower my expectations. I'd like to get a 90 on all of my exams, but I don't want to put so much pressure on me. Let's say that I get an 80. So see, you use the information, you changed your goals, and it sets that cycle all in. You're going to set your standard, which would be an 80. You measure your performance by taking the quiz. You compare your performance, which would be your grade, to what your goals are. You take corrective action, it starts all over again. So that's what that's what controlling means, is that you set the goals and then you measure against the goals. If you're not reaching the goals, you take corrective action. Finally, roles of managers, because managers sometimes have to play several different roles. So there's basically information, interpersonal, and decision makers. Those are kind of the roles that all managers tend to have to do. So for information, you monitor for information, you listen, you kind of collect the information. You would disseminate the information inside your organization, or if you are disseminating it outside your organization, then you're a spokesperson. For interpersonal, you're a figurehead. You're just a ceremonial person, cutting the ribbon. You're a leader, which we've already talked about, or you're a liaison. So you're a go-between individuals inside and outside your organization. And finally, decisional. Entrepreneur, you're looking for new things to do. Disturbance handler, you're trying to handle unexpected events. And resource allocation,